So, what things should you do before going off grid? Well, number one, don't chuck out all your mains appliances. Number two, if you've got a choice to buy, a place and you can sort of pick and choose what you should buy, I highly, highly recommend getting a place in an area with a lot of forests around or easy surface access to coal, or coal of any sort of quantity. And the other one would be especially a place that has like a spring or even access, to a river, even if it's sort of a creek or whatever, sort of running through it. Another one is a place that gets decent sunlight, and you may want to take into consideration wind power as well, although wind power can become a bit of a pain in the butt in other ways, especially when it comes to growing plants. If there's too much wind, I've snapped stalks off prize plants just because of wind. The other thing that you can do, and you really should do this, is learn to solder properly with electronics soldering flux. And what that is with electronic solder, there is the flux inside the solder already, and it's known as rosin, R-O-S-I-N. Don't worry about plumber's flux. If you use that on electronics, you murder the electronics. It's game over for electronics. You can't do it like that with electronics. You've got to use proper electronic solder, and it'll say rosin core on it. And it's usually 60-40 ratio. And learn to solder by getting mains cables like in the wall, and you can get out a little, bit of copper that might be, say, about 2 mil wide or something like that. Not your flexible stuff like in your extension leads, but your stiff stuff. And you make yourself up like a little mat out of it, like a little mesh thing. And get a piece of wood and nails on each corner of the wood, and you make a little mat. Make the squares 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, make the whole mat probably 5 inch by 5 inch out of this wire, and try and solder it all together, and then try and get rough with it and see if you can break any of the solder joints. This is the way I was taught in electronics class at school, and by gosh, you get good. The key is not to hold it on too long, to have beautiful clean copper, not your greasy fingers all over it. Use steel wool, a bit of acetone or whatever if you ever do make stuff dirty. Steel wool's are usually the best go. Acetone, you don't want that in circuit boards. It might be alright to get a bit of dirty stuff off wire, but not near circuit boards. Having said that, keep in mind that it's the speed at which you do it. If you hold it on too long, the flux burns off. The flux only lasts, literally about a second. But learn to electronics solder, not heavy-duty plumbing solder, just electronics fine soldering with electronic soldering wire. And that'll be a massive asset when it comes to setting up all the electricals and solar systems and stuff of that nature. You don't know how much you need it. It was a great asset to have when I come here. The other thing is get to know what prices are what for 12-volt appliances, and learn a bit of basic electronics knowledge and knowledge about solar systems. I've got solar explained in under 5 minutes. I'll do another one on basic multimeter use, and that'll sort of give you an idea about the basics of electronics. to be able to set a lot of stuff up. But even if you just go out and see what 12-volt appliances are available and what prices they're at, and all the other bits and pieces you may need, propane, you know, stoves and wood heaters and stuff like that, go out and have a look at all this stuff and squeeze out the price so you know what the price is. Don't buy the first one you see, just go around and have a look and see what's available and get a feel for what you're going to have to pay for what thing, so you don't get ripped off. And the other one is learn to use a chainsaw. I will put a bit more up about chainsaw use before too long, and how to chop a tree and stuff like that. You got to be pretty careful with the old chainsaw. A, they'll cut your fingers off without a problem in the world. B, you won't be worried about the actual chainsaw injuring you if you have a tree falling on top of you, believe me. You know, you've really got to know how to fell a tree without killing yourself. And look, find somebody who's real knowledgeable in, you know, tree cutting, and it may be someone out near these off-grid area you're thinking of living in, or particularly family involved in farming and stuff like that, who has their own wood heaters, or other people you know who do a lot of chopping up of wood and stuff like that. Not so much for woodwork or carpentry, but more for just, you know, open fires, wood heaters and things like that, who chop down entire trees, and they'll teach you really well. But I'll put up a bit myself, but there's nothing quite like actually, with all things, you know, you can do theory, but there's the practical. When you actually get out there, you know, get one in your hands and you know, look at a tree and estimate the way it's going to fall, and then slice it up, bang, drop it, and then slice it all up. You know, do bucking as they call it, and you know, chop it all up into bits and all that. Yeah, that's another great one. Yeah, I can't really think of a great heap. The other one you should probably do is watt counting, and go running around sort of looking at what appliances you can realistically use, and you'll be surprised at how much of your electronics are just perfect. I mean, you know, some days here it's like the blooming electronic circus. The amount of blooming gear I have running. You know, I get to the point I often play back these videos on my phone just to see that I haven't made any mistakes, and all that. And you know, sometimes I'm trying to do that, and then I'm trying to upload one to YouTube on the laptop, and then I've got a portable DVD player, and I'll be trying to watch a DVD on that, and between all three, oh gosh, you know, I can only watch a DVD or play my phone videos back at one time. You know, it just gets a bit too much electronics. But yeah, you'll be able to keep a lot of your electronics, and a lot of other stuff. Smaller appliances, things like that. But yeah, the other one is I'll put up some of the useful but very cheap things that I have in these off-grid houses, and you may want to look into going and buying that, because some of these things are literally just pocket change. And yeah, I think that sort of rounds it up. But even if you do get the chance, this is one other one. Go, and if you've got a place, and especially if you can just set up a bit of, even just a bit of old tarp, or a couple of pallets, and wood sitting on the pallets, and a tarp over the top of them with a few other blocks of wood on the outside. It's a great idea, if you're in a wooded area, to cut yourself wood the year before you move in, so it's had an entire summer with which to dry out, because you can't just, this is something you may not know if you haven't had a lot to do with wood, you can't just say, okay, winter's coming, and just, you know, chuck a chop the wood in late autumn and then just burn it straight away off ground tree. It needs to dry, and it needs basically an entire summer at least to be able to do that. So your cutting has got to be basically in the start of spring, and so it gets those hotter days near the end of spring and then the entire summer to dry out. But to have a year's worth of wood already there at the place before you build the house, it means that as you first move in, bada bing, you've already got wood to use, especially for heating and even maybe for cooking as well, depending on if you want to use it for cooking as well. And get to learn a few of the propane fittings and how they go together as well. That's always a great one to know. And find out, not for where you live personally now, but for the off-grid area that you're going to live in, who supplies the propane bottles in the area. Yeah, that's probably about all I can think of that you should sort of pre-do before going off-grid.